Going on, everybody? This is Brian Mazik, aka Unique Mazik, the hardest working man in sports and gaming, and it is my absolute pleasure to have an opportunity to talk to NBA 2K19 senior producer Erick Boenisch. And I remember, I gotta say this because I remember the first interview I ever did with him was back in 2013, and I didn't even know how to pronounce his name right. So that, and he didn't even correct me. So so that was pretty cool. How you doing today, Erick?
I'm doing good, man. When you have a name like mine where all the letters are just jumbled around, like I don't even care what people call me. It's all good.
Hey, I can relate. I can relate. So I've been called everything from magazine to Maziqua, all kinds of stuff, right?
It's French, right? Mazique?
Yeah, Haitian, so French, yeah. So, yeah. So, all right. So we are here to talk about, now you guys know, I have broadened my horizons quite a bit and started to, play other modes, got into the NBA 2K League. But anybody who really knows me and knows my channel knows that my heart is around franchise modes. And I've said continually that I think that 2K does the best job of any of the sports games right now in terms of catering to franchise modes. And for you guys that don't understand, he has a team, but the person that spearheads that effort is Erick Boenisch. So if you love franchise mode in 2K, you really, really need to understand that Erick Boenisch and his team, Leftos and those guys, are largely responsible for the modes that you play. So let's see. All right. So like we said, we're going to talk about the MyGM MyLeague blog, which is coming out. It comes out August the 2nd, and it's got a lot of stuff in it, Erick. So let me just ask you, if you were to kind of sum up the experience without getting into the details exactly, because we're going to talk about some of that stuff, what's your overwhelming thought and feeling about what you guys accomplished with MyLeague and MyGM this year?
Boy, an overwhelming thought. I mean, obviously, I'm really proud of what we accomplished this year. I know the blog's out there now. Everyone can go read it. It's very long. I'm sorry it's so long. I'm just proud that the breadth of what we've been able to accomplish. I mean, we have, we put out this MyLeague Online, which our fans have been asking for, which is, basically a replication of the offline experience. We have, a new MyGM store. We brought back traditional MyGM. We did all those crazy tuning sliders. There's just so much in the game this year that I think we really catered to anyone's needs. Like, everyone kind of plays this mode differently. Some people are really going to dig into those historical draft classes. I'm really proud of everything that we've done. I think we put a great feature set together this year.
Yes, I was pretty impressed. So we talked about MyLeague Online. There's an overview out in the blog for that. And one of the things that I constantly heard from my franchise mode brothers and sisters, especially the ones that play online, they wanted pretty much everything to mirror the offline experience. So most of the ones that I know did not like the keeper design. So they were I know they're happy to see that the keeper design during the off season is gone. Can you talk a little bit about what the process was in transitioning from the keeper design?
Absolutely. I would love to, honestly. Excuse me. The main concept of that is it's a lot of work, right? So, like, the concept of the off-season is very tough. You have a lot of types of features that require custom design. When you're in a multi-user online franchise and you have things like, let's start with the draft. The draft has to be a real-time event. You have to engineer a system where you can get all the people in there at once. It can't be like, the number one guy makes a pick and the number two guy, he logs on the next day and he makes his pick, and the number three guy's in Europe, so he logs on the next day. It's got to be this real-time event where all 30 GMs are in there picking in real time. The same can be true for free agency. We needed a real-time free agency where people are in there making bids in real time. You're advancing days in real time. You're signing players. You're choosing not to sign players. And that's all stuff that's extensive work and very custom for each time period. Like staff signing is another one. That's like a day-based period. Rookie signing at the end, like doing scouting. Like, all of these things needed to work where, people could all be on at the same time advancing. And we also set it up so that you can kind of do it old school, where you can log in. The admin can say, oh, I want everything to take one day. So you can kind of log on your own time and do stuff. It's very flexible in its design. And just this MyLeague Online as a whole, it's just based entirely from our fan feedback. We heard loud and clear. People wanted a fully, authentic MyLeague Online experience. And I think we totally delivered that this year with NBA 2K19.
Man, I would say, especially the thing with the timer. The timer is really, because every MyLeague functions differently. You have the hardcore MyLeague people who everybody in the MyLeague is totally tuned in. They're all locked in. So timing and scheduling is not really that much of a problem. Everybody will meet on their draft day, like a really well-oiled fantasy football league. They'll all meet on their draft day. But then you have some where you got the ones where you got to chase the guy who owns the Grizzlies. So you got to chase.
Yep. There's always some guy, right? Like,
there's always some guy that just won't play his game or something.
It's the fantasy football guy that doesn't move his bye weeks around. He keeps his
exactly.
Yeah, that guy.
So it's like you always have that. So it's really cool to be able to control the timers on all of these different things. If everybody's together to be able to play through the entire off season, then awesome. We can do that all in one awesome day. It really does. I think, do a lot to help the game, or help the mode, I should say.
It is. It's super flexible too, because like if the Grizzlies owner is sick and he can't make it, the admin can say, well, all right, let me pause everything. We'll try again tomorrow night. Like you have a lot of flexibility in that too.
Yes, I read that in the blog for sure. Now, one of the thing that you said here that did not make it in was the full the in-season player training.
Yep.
Can you talk about a little bit of the struggles in not being able to get that in this year, and maybe if it's something that could still potentially come through later?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the concept of time is a very tough thing in MyLeague Online, because it's a flex schedule based system where you can kind of play your games out of order.
Right.
And so there's not really like an advancement of days. Like if you go and play your first 20 games, like what day is it? Is it November? Is it December? Is it January?
Mm-hmm.
And because you might have played 20 games, but another guy might have only played like 1 or 2 because he's the Grizzlies guy.
Right.
So the concept, because the whole player training is based around time, like I'm overworking this guy so he's fatigued, or I'm focusing on this skill, which over time he'll become a better 3-point shooter. So when the concept of time is lacking, it's very difficult to do a feature like that. So we're kind of, this year there was just way too much to do to get this thing online. So next year we got to figure out how we're going to incorporate that concept into the MyLeague Online experience.
Definitely. And I think that's the coolest thing is I think any logical fan of all of these modes knows that there is a development cycle. They know that there's a ceiling for what can get done in a span. But I think it really helps to find out the whys something didn't get done, because then that way it creates a realistic expectation. Well, maybe it wasn't this year, maybe it'll be next year, maybe it'll be the year after that. But that explanation, I think, for a gamer who's in tune with the product, I think that's golden, really. So I appreciate that personally. All right, now let's talk about ultimate customization. So the tuning of the sliders.
Ooh, boy, this is the fun stuff.
We love sliders, because sliders allow us to create the league that we want. So talk a little bit about what you did there, some of the insight, that may not have been in the blog, because I know it was long, but I know you still probably left some stuff out.
Always. The ultimate customization, just like a high level for what it is, I feel like when I read feedback from our fans, whether that be like on forums, whether that's on like a social media channels, everyone's kind of that armchair quarterback. They're criticizing the trade. Oh, this trade happened in real life. And they all go to run to NBA 2K. They try to do the trade, and they post a screenshot on, Reddit or Twitter of like our GM saying, that's a dumb trade. I would never do that.
Yes.
It's pretty funny because most of the trade, it's true. You lead a trade. It's just most trades are dumb because they happen for existential circumstances that you can't replicate in the game. So for us, this is a chance for people to be the manipulator of the league, and you can really change how teams think about players. You can make players who are older worth way more, or you can look at the value of an expiring contract and make that worth much less or much more. And you can really change how like rebuilding teams think from teams who are selling, who are contending, who are buying teams. Like the Lakers are a buying team. They're trying to buy players, right? They're trying to do anything they can to get better at this point.
Right.
You can really redesign how those teams think and build their teams. And I think that was the main point of our feature here, was just to give people more control than any franchise-based simulation has ever even tried to do before.
Yeah, and the awesome thing about it is that if I'm correct, you can actually share these sliders. So if you find the perfect setting of what you think is perfect for real life NBA, you can share this slider set. You know, I can imagine on Operation Sports and some other places, people will be saying, hey, if you want to run your league in the most authentic way, here's the sliders for all of this stuff.
Yeah, I said it somewhere else in the blog. I think it was in the MyLeague section, MyLeague Online, that, you know, we really spend a lot of time not just coming up with the features, but thinking how people are going to use them.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, this is the type of feature where there's like, you know, I don't know the number, like 100 sliders, right? Maybe more.
Right.
And are you supposed to go on the forum and say, okay, put this one 12 ticks in and then put
right.
36? Like, that's ridiculous, right? So if someone thinks they have the perfect set, you can save it, share it, upload it, and other people can try it out and modify it from there, or just use it as is. I mean, that's just one of those, you know, usability things for our fans where we're just trying to make it as easy as possible to get the best experience that you can have.
Yeah. Can you think of one thing that can be affected by the sliders that didn't make the blog?
So I wrote, sorry guys, I wrote the blog a few weeks ago at this point, and I've done a million things since then. So let me, I got to try and squeeze the work in when I can.
Right, I understand. I mean, I know it's crunch time. So
there was more on the player valuation stuff.
Okay.
With respect to like the draft picks, what they're worth, what a developing player before he hits his peak age is worth. That because I didn't want to go into that. That was just what overwhelmed you. I thought that section was already long enough as is, so I was trying to prune it down a little bit.
Yeah.
But there's definitely more in there. I can get specifics later. I just don't have it right in front of me.
I understand. I mean, there's a lot here. There really is a lot here. Now, I've tempered my expectations.
Let's go. Let's do it.
My anticipation for this. Create a player is back and improved because I'm gonna be honest with you, Eric. Last year, I just really did not like it.
Like, I know. I read your 9 articles. I got it.
Yeah. And it was probably around about that too.
It probably was. So I want 12 this year talking about how good it is.
Oh my God. Yeah, man. Okay. So we don't even have to dwell in the past, but this year's creative player has full face sculpting back.
Yes.
And
more.
That is a beautiful thing. I mean, I don't know if you're aware of a gentleman. His name is Tigor, right?
Mm-hmm. I do. Yes, I know. I know my constituents, so I got this.
Oh my God, the guy is so talented,
super talented
as an art, and what he could do with the face sculpting was amazing. You know, so I really wanted people like that, and I'm pretty good with it too. I'm not as good as him, but I'm pretty good with it, and I wanted people like that to have that tool back in their hands. And this sounds like not only do they have it back to where 2K17 was, it seems like it might be a little bit better. Would you say the sculpting gives you more options?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's not just more options, but the control over the sliders gives you a better chance of creating realistic faces. Like the team really spent a lot of time listening to our customer feedback, the feedback from our fans. I mean, Brian, was pretty loud and clear, right? Like it was pretty obvious what needed to happen. And so rather than just kind of trying to scrape the bottom of the barrel and hit the bare minimum, we just said, let's go all in and make the absolute best, you know, create a player feature we can. And that's exactly what we did. And
that is pretty awesome. So 50 different facial hair choices?
Yeah, it's something like that. It's right around there.
Okay, now can you, if this isn't in the blog, can you layer the facial hair, like, because that's one thing that people want to do to kind of create a shadow look. You know, and I don't think you could ever do that in 2K before. It's almost like combining 2 different facial hair sets. Like, so a guy can have like a goatee, but he can also have like a 5 o'clock shadow, kind of like how Kemba Walker's hair facial hair is.
In a way, you can. You can't layer like that. I mean, you pick your facial hair, and then further down the line, there are things like. It's not so much the 5 o'clock shadow. It's more like the blemishes, the freckles. What were they?
Got it. Okay.
Like facial discolorations. Like you can do those types of things. It's not so much like I want sideburns like Luke Perry, and then I want a mustache, and then like, you know, it's not so much like that. Do people know who Luke Perry is anymore? I don't know. I'm old.
I do. That's why I gave him the reference Beverly Hills 90210 just in case they were a little lost.
No, there's definitely a lot more control, and I think people are really, 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 really going to like what we've done this year. Even the hairstyle stuff. When I started playing with the hair stuff, I was blown away. I'm like, wait, I can make the hair longer and shorter for select hairstyles. Like, it's pretty cool. So,
yeah, that was the next thing I was going to ask. So you can have like a LaMelo Ball, Odell Beckham type of hairstyle and make it longer, or what are some of the hairstyles you can make longer?
so it's kind of hit or miss on some. Like some designs, like obviously the really, really short ones, you can't make
Right.
longer or shorter. But some you definitely can. Like when you got the dreads, the cornrows, like you can kind of play with the lengths on those.
Got it.
I don't remember the exact numbers. Probably like 30 or 40% of them you could definitely change the length of. So,
And color, you can still change like colorization and
oh, absolutely, yeah.
like, and how about certain parts of the hair? Like, some guys wear blonde on top, and I know, I hate to make another reference, but I know you can do that in WWE 2K's creative player.
Mm-hmm.
So, on the top, can you do that? Like with, I guess I'm trying to think like, Alan Crabb has his like that, or at least he used to.
Yes. You're thinking like, what's the guy from Demolition Man too?
Yeah.
Wesley Snipes.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of what's the word? Like segment control on the hair.
Okay.
But you can obviously, like I mentioned in the blog, you can do, you can put like, what are those things? You can put like logos in your hair. You can shape patterns into the hair.
That's cool.
You can choose the cut around the corners how you want it to go. So it's a lot more of that. Just trying to hit all the basics that our fans ask for, and I'm sure we'll have a lot of feedback this year. And I think at this point, we're fully in depth and committed to keeping, trying, that best in class creative player. So I think from here it's just onward and upwards. So we're really excited to see what people can create with what we put in this year.
I think that's really awesome to hear too. That you guys are committed to continually improving the creative player, and this is, I mean, I haven't even used it, but just from the options that are in the blog, there's no way it won't be at least 3 to 4 times as good as last year's. And that's, that progress.
Last year's didn't even have the sliders. I mean, this is a totally different level.
Yeah, it didn't.
It was jump up.
It was, I don't know, but it was tough. I do have 2 other questions though about creative player. Can you say why you weren't able to bring in image uploads as a means of creating a player? Because in WWE 2K, you can like take a image of like any picture, a person's face or something. And was there a reason why you couldn't put that in?
Yeah, there's a few actually. The first was, I think if you look at creative player, if you go from last year to this year, this was more of like a foundational year. Like we pretty much had to scrap everything we had because it wasn't in the place where you could take last year's and go, well, let's add sliders to it. Like the whole under the hood architecture of it needed to change. So this is kind of like building it back up to the place where our fans really want us to go. And moving beyond that, if you look at, and I know you guys don't all have visibility of this like I do, but if you look at the game as a whole, everything we've done this year, which obviously I can't talk about today, is mind-blowing. And there's only so many places to go around, of like how many things you can put into the game.
Yeah.
And so this year, the main focus was, it's also one of those things when you're developing a game, you got to be realistic with yourself. You can't just put everything in the game in 1 year, because if you do, you're going to fall short, and each little segment is going to have problems and not work well. So we really focused on delivering like a feature-robust create player that hits the main core needs that all of our fans have been asking for. And from there, we kind of branch out where it's kind of like MyLeague. First you put in a season, and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to make better trading logic. Okay, now I'm going to put in like draft picks. And this year I'm going to do trade restrictions. And every year you keep making it better and better and growing it outwards at a pace that is comfortable for you and for the fans to kind of consume as well.
Yes, I got it. And the last one, though, I don't see in a blog where you mentioned tattoos, goggles, or face mask or anything like that. Is that available for offline creative players?
I'm going to have to get back to you on that one, Brian. I haven't played with that piece in a while. I believe so, but I don't want to commit to it, so I don't want to say yes. But I can get back to you that offline. You can follow up with it.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, because if tats are in for offline creative players, then I think that I mean that's a huge deal. That's a huge deal because I do know that a lot of people are wanting that, to be able to put tattoos on their player. If you want to make a guy just look like Travis Barker, you know what I'm saying? You can do it. So. Yeah, all the way up.
Follow up on that one. I'm not super confident on that one, but I'll have to get back to you offline on that one.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about MyGM. So I think this was a really smart way to go. I think this customization and these different options are really the way to do it. So you have the saga continues, which picks up or starts another story like last year. And then you can just do traditional MyGM without the story at all.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously we got a lot of feedback last year. A lot of fans love what we did last year, and a lot of them didn't. You know, they just wanted to play MyGM without having to press A lot. So this year, it's really a choice. You can choose to do, you know, the new Saga Continue story, which is masterfully written, and then there's also traditional MyGM, which is what you're familiar with in NBA 2K17 and before. So it's really like, you know, if you want a story, play it. If you don't, you know, don't play it. Go play traditional MyGM. So we really this is another case where we looked at what our players wanted, how they play, and tried to cater to both audiences.
Yeah, and then you have the new NBA draft, where the teams you're putting here, the teams gamble on their future with the youth of today. It was actually I read so much. I think this is one of the parts that I don't know how much I absorbed this one.
No, that's
oh, I know, this is the part where you changed basically the way it looks and how you give more information. The announcers are going to give more information for each player. Now, I noticed that when you load a draft class, right, it asks you, do you want to have a story created?
Storylines. Yeah.
Right. So is that playing into that?
I mean, it's not really playing into it, but the new draft takes advantage of it if you choose to say yes.
Okay. Got it.
But the new draft is really cool, Brian, because like when I was playing last year and previous years with fictional draft classes, you know, you would see some guy like just get drafted from Nebraska, and you're like, Nebraska? Like, what's the story on this kid? Like, why do they want him? You know nothing about him unless you just spent hours and hours looking at stats, right? So now after the guy gets drafted, he's going to say, oh, well, this guy happened to have the highest vertical in the class for all shooting guards. And as soon as you read that, you're like, oh, well, okay, that makes sense. He's an athletic freak. Or he may have led the nation in assists last year at Villanova. You kind of learn a lot about the players, and you're like, oh, well, I see why they drafted him. That was a need for them, or this is the best player available, or, you know, whatever the case may be. You're learning about the players as you go, and I found that makes me more invested in them as years go on, because I'm like, I remember some of the tidbits, like, oh, you know, this guy had the longest wingspan and the highest vertical in his class. Like, he's a freak. That kind of sticks with you. So you really feel more invested in the players in the league, and it's one of those enriching features we added to the game this year.
Yeah, it really it adds to the immersion for sure. And to me, that's what MyGM, MyLeague, that's what franchise modes are all about. It's all about immersion. You know, the other modes you can play somewhat disconnected and not really knowing what's going on. You can be talking on the phone while you're playing. But when you're playing MyGM and MyLeague, you're in that league. You know what I mean? For right now. And, you know, now the next thing is the other thing that I knew I would love. And I couldn't wait. The historical draft classes.
Yep.
Man, I'm trying to tell you, I don't think people realize, like,
this is cool.
This is crazy, right? So 1960, which is the Oscar Robertson, Jerry West draft class.
Yep.
65, Gil Goodrich, Rick Barry, Jerry Sloan, and more. 69 is insane because Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Yeah. He was Lou Alcindor then, but and JoJo White. Then 1970, you got Bob Lanier, Pete Maravich, Dave Cowens, Tom Janovich, Tiny Archibald. And 74, Bill Walton, Jamal Wilkes, Mo Lucas,
in there.
Iceman. And then when it gets really insane, from 1976 all the way to the present, no skipping years.
Yeah. Because, I mean, as you get closer to the present, we get more and more rights to players.
Yes.
So you can make the classes better and more robust. This is the coolest feature. Like, I love this. Like, I think I wrote about it in the blog, but at one point I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do a 40-year franchise, and I'm going to start with 1976, and every year I'm just going to increment and go to the next year. So like 20 years in, I had basically a historical NBA in my league, and it was the coolest darn thing that I've probably done in our mode in many, 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 many years. Like, I loved it.
I think it's awesome, man, because it gives you so many rewrite history options. And, you know, like, I'm already picturing myself doing videos like, what if the Portland Trailblazers had taken Michael Jordan instead of Sam Bowie? Yep. You know what I mean? You know, that kind of stuff. Or what if the Rockets had taken Michael Jordan #1? Or, you know, all this different kinds of stuff that you can do, you know, just rewriting history. And I just like the scope of it. Like, honestly, this sounds like something that me and my brother came up with when we were like 11. Yeah.
I know the feeling.
And we were like, there's no way in the world a video game will ever be able to do that. You know what I mean? And
But think about it this way, Brian. When you're playing and like the fictional drafts come up and you have a first round pick, you're like, okay, fine. But if you know that class is Larry Bird in it, or it has Magic Johnson, or
right,
gosh forbid, Michael Jordan, like you are dead serious about scouting that class, about drafting for players because these dudes, So
yeah,
you are super invested, and like every draft is a huge monumental event because it's like who's going to land Magic, Where's David Robinson going to go? Like it's I love it. It's super fun. It makes trading for draft picks a blast too. I just found myself just constantly trading for draft picks because I just wanted to draft, the next Hall of Famer. It was awesome. I loved it.
So you'll be able to use historical draft classes in MyLeague online?
Yes, because the league admin can import any draft class he wants. So yes.
Beautiful. Oh my God. Can you imagine? That's insane. That's totally insane. And then you could do something crazy like, all right, we're not going to go in chronological order. We're going to do a random select of the draft class that's coming.
Oh, totally.
Oh, that's insane. That's just totally insane. Now, are the draft classes themselves, can you edit them? So
of course you can, because there's some players obviously we don't have rights to, and if people want to kind of fill in the slots on some players, like you have that option. Absolutely.
Awesome. That's really awesome. Now, with all of the players that are in the draft classes, will they be accessible in the roster outside of classic draft classes? Like, so if I wanted to make a roster with guys who are in the draft class, but I didn't necessarily want to import them in the draft class, is there some way for me to find them on the roster to, do trades and move around and to set up a custom roster beforehand?
Gosh, I'm going to have to get back to you on that one. That's something I haven't tried. I know we have our new player DNA feature, which I discussed later on in the blog.
Yes.
I think that might be the avenue for that. Let me get back to you on that, Brian. I'd like to, because I'd like to know that answer myself.
Okay. And also, lastly, can you edit the player ages for Legends this year?
For Legends, I don't think that has changed, so I do not think you can, no.
Okay. Because, usually that's the way that is.
Yeah.
But
there's lots of rules we get from the NBA, Brian, that we have to kind of follow, and that's one of the quirky ones. So.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. That's good to know. That's good to know, because that stops people from asking the question every year and believing that 2K just won't let us do that. You know what I'm saying?
There's so many things. Like we actually did one year, 2 or 3, 4 years ago. We allowed it, and it was just it was a no. So. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So, but honestly, it almost seems like there is a workaround, because player DNA, if it would take a little bit more work, but you could, do it somewhere that way. So, all right. So you also have player mentorships. I really like this. I love this concept. Where, for anybody who hasn't read the blog, if you have a veteran on the team who plays the same position as a young player, that veteran can kind of school that young player and help them develop in, adding certain badges, increasing certain attributes, and it doesn't work as well if they don't play the same position, correct?
Correct. And that's exactly what it is. I mean, it's a great way for you to kind of take charge of how your players are going to develop. If you want, like for me, I'm a Lakers homer, so I put Rondo on ball as soon as I start the season, and in the next year I offload Rondo and I look for another point guard to kind of keep teaching Lonzo Ball into the point guard that I hope he can become someday. So I'm always trying to custom develop him. And the really interesting part of that I didn't really think about when the team kind of designed this feature was how it changes your free agency thoughts. You're not like, okay, I don't really need a starter at this position, but if I can get a player who is an older player who can just sit there and teach ball, like certain types of skills that I'm looking for, that's something I'm thinking about in free agency, which I never thought about before in years past. So it really changes how I build my teams personally.
Yeah. Now, do certain veterans specialize in certain badges, or can they so say for instance, if a guy doesn't have Lob City Passer badge,
yep,
is it possible for him to help get a younger player that badge? Or
absolutely. Like if you go in and you're looking for Chris Paul has a Lob City Passer badge. If you stick him on a point guard that doesn't have the badge, that player can learn the bronze version of the badge probably in the first year, depending on how old he is and all the factors that go around it. But yeah, you can definitely teach people new tricks.
So say for instance, if Chris Paul doesn't have the Lob City Passer badge, that means he can't teach it to the other player, right?
Oh, correct. He can only teach what he knows.
That is awesome.
And that's why the free agency is really interesting, because you're looking for guys that have the skills that you want to pass on to your younger kids.
That is awesome. That is so like that's probably a low key, really super dope feature.
We love it. We think it's a lot of fun.
That's really good because.
And the cool thing about it is this is a feature that the CPU takes advantage of too. So it's not like you just kind of cheating and making your players better. The CPU is thinking the same things in free agency and during the season. So they're constantly teaching their younger players as well. Yeah,
I love that. Now, one other thing, and I actually spoke to Scott OG about this a couple weeks ago in LA, and it's almost similar to the player mentorship, but I call it like a defensive floor general badge. You know, there's guys like, you know, Draymond Green, Kevin Garnett, guys who when they're on the floor, because of their level of communication and, you know, their defensive basketball IQ, they're able to raise the level of everybody else that's on the floor with them from a defensive standpoint. So the entire team becomes a better defense when they're on the floor. Has there ever been any talk about having like a defensive floor general badge, especially for MyGM and MyLeague, because it would also impact your free agency and that sort of thing?
So I think you know how I'm going to answer this one, but I definitely have to defer this one to the Mike Wangs, the Scott OGs of the world. Like that is definitely their area of expertise, and I would completely defer to them on that one.
Gotcha. Yeah, I figured it might be, but I thought I might throw it out there because I didn't know. But I think that would be really awesome. Like if you're on the floor with Draymond Green, everybody on the floor gets like +2 defensive awareness or something like that. So
now that's actually really cool, Ada. You should hey, why don't you tell Mike Wang that?
Yeah, I think I did.
Okay, all right.
Cool. All right. So you do also get a chance to trade player exceptions.
All new this year.
Say that. Yeah, that's new.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I know a lot of people wanted that too. I wouldn't say a lot of people, but I do know there's a pocket of people in the MyGM and MyLeague community that I did hear mention trading player exceptions because.
I mean, yeah, I think that's true, Brian. As a whole, people want an authentic experience, and I think player exceptions are a very critical portion of the authentic experience, and that's something we're always trying to build every single year.
Yeah, I mean, because we get a lot more information about real life NBA trades than we used to. You know,
right.
Back in the day, you used to find out, Charles Oakley got traded for Bill Cartwright, and that was it. You didn't know about any of the financial stuff involved. You just knew that the trade happened. And now a lot of the details are being broken down. So then people in turn turn to NBA 2K looking for that same level of authenticity.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The new All-Star format is in, which I thought is really cool.
That's done. You get to do the draft. You pick your players, do what you want. And
you can also use the old way too, right?
If you go for a rule change for that.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm gonna add that. I'm gonna ask you too about the rule changes. Also, we got the new summer league format where all of the teams compete at least 3 prelim games, and all of the teams are going to play at least 5 minimum games. I really like that. Do we have any new venues for Summer League, or is it Las Vegas and Orlando?
No, it takes place in Las Vegas. This is the official NBA Las Vegas Summer League.
Right, because Orlando isn't. They don't have it in Orlando.
Oh yeah, Orlando's no more. Like it's gone this year.
Okay. Now this brings me to one question though. We didn't get the G League in this year where you could actually play the G League games. Was there a reason that didn't make it in, or is that kind of one of those things?
It's kind of one of those things. We have a lot more G League integration this year. I don't think I really talked about it this year. Like we have all the team logos and the team affiliations, and you're going to see a lot more. You're going to feel a lot more closer to your G League team, but you can't play the games. It's kind of weird. Like it's one of those things. I think it sounds cooler than it is. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, if you're really hardcore and you want to develop that guy, that can be a lot of fun, and I totally acknowledge that. It's just one of those things. We looked at the breadth of the feature set this year, and it didn't really fit the bill. There was too many other things that the team really wanted to get in this year. And when guys like Dave Z, when guys like Leftos, when they have Tim, who does all of our logic, when they have an idea, I really want them to run with it and give them full reign to kind of make something cool for you guys.
Right. Yeah. I'll throw this out there. I think one way that the G League in MyLeague could be made more fun, because I agree with you. It probably sounds cooler than it is, because if you really ask yourself how many people are going to actually spend time playing G League games when they
think about it this way, Brian, you're going to be playing with a full game with players who are all worse than the worst player in the NBA.
Exactly.
More or less. That's more or less true.
That's more or less true. My only idea I would say that may actually do some good is if you think about playing using player lock.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
So if you say, hey, I want to take this one particular guy and kind of do a my career within MyLeague, and I can take him up from the G League and, try to get him called up.
So we do offer that. Like, just generally speaking, you can player lock in MyGM MyLeague.
Right.
So
right.
you can pretend it's just not the G League portion, but everything else you said you can already do, which is kind of cool.
Right. Yeah. Yep. That's what I meant. Yep.
Yeah.
So then you also have the injury history menu, which I think is really cool. Now, does this go back before the game? Like, so, Russell Westbrook tore his meniscus. I don't know when that was, like 2014.
Yeah, a few years ago. Yeah.
So would that show up in the injury history menu, or is it just injuries that happen moving
So that
forward?
was the intention, but then as we started trying to figure out the injury history for every player, it's not really documented in any one single spot, and it was just darn near impossible to create a database of even small little, this guy's got the flu, or he's got a little ankle twist that he missed one game.
Right.
That's really hard to figure out, which we learned. So that was the agenda. So basically, what it is, it's all injuries moving forward. And even then, when you're multiple years in and you're in free agency, I always flip over to guys' injury history before I'm going to make a big max signing. Because you can look at guys and say, this guy's injury prone. He's going to get injured for me. And that's something you didn't have knowledge of in years past. You just kind of had to pay really close attention to that injury report. This year, you can just go flip a guy, look at his card, and just see if it's something that you want to gamble on. So it's great information this year.
Now, we didn't see hardly any in-game injuries this year. So, especially in MyLeague, MyGM, do we know how that works this year? Like you saw a lot of injuries like during your sims or when you were simming through, guys would get injured, but in-game injuries seem to be way, way turned down. Even when you turn the sliders up, it seemed like it was turned down. So do we know how that's been impacted or changed this year?
Absolutely. And so we had an issue last year where everybody got a left ankle injury too. It was like left ankle, left ankle, left ankle, left ankle, left ankle, left ankle. I talked to Jerson and his team a lot this year on that. I think it's a lot more of a fair balance on injury tuning. It's one of those things, it's an authenticity versus, people invest a lot of time in their lives playing these modes, and it's kind of not fun when all your dudes are hurt all year. But it is sim and it is realistic. So there's that balance of that,
Yeah.
We do have a slider for this, obviously, right?
That's what I was just about to say. It's a slider for it. So,
it's a slider for everything in this mode, and that's why this mode is one of my all-timers. I love it.
Yeah. So I mean, because sometimes I want to see a guy actually get injured in the game. I remember one year where the injuries were really, really pretty solid. They were good. I remember it was might have been like 16. I can't recall, but I remember I was playing with the Bulls, of course. And I was controlling Jimmy Butler, and I was trying to move over a screen, and he took the screen right in the chest, and he went down right after the screen, and I think he had a broken rib or something, and it sucked because Jimmy Butler was playing well, but it was awesome because I could see exactly where the injury happened, and you want to talk about immersion, it totally brought me in there. So. Are we looking more at injuries happening before our eyes like that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they captured a lot of animations for I'm talking about their gameplay stuff. They're going to shoot me. A lot of animations for injuries and stuff. So I think they're trying to show that stuff off. So
okay.
I gotta ask you a question though, Mozzie K. Does that mean you're the guy that likes to see the injuries? You like to see the players get hurt? Is that what I just heard?
Absolutely. And the other thing I like is I like not getting a full diagnosis immediately because because in real life, you don't find out, the guy's got to get an MRI and all that. And I like feeling a little bit tense after the injury.
We do that within the scope of the given game, but when the game's over, we kind of tell you what's going on.
Okay, that's good enough. That's good enough.
You have to have that information, but during the game, you get the report. This guy had to go back to the locker room. We don't know. We'll give you a report later. And sometimes
that's what I want.
You get the report, and then sometimes you don't. But when the game's over, you'll get the hey, this guy broke his leg, type of information. So
right, because I want to be nervous for the rest of the game.
Oh, you will be. It's depending on the injury. Sometimes immediately they can assess it and go, it's fine, and they throw him right back in. So it just depends on the type of injury, the severity of the injury. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what, because that's the way it's supposed to run. You're like, man, I hope it's not that bad, and they're like, well, it looked bad, and you're like, oh man, I hope it's not that bad. I want to feel that. All right, draft pick tracking. I like this a lot. Where you can, kind of look back and see where, what happened with each of the draft picks. In
This
previous
is a cool feature. This is one of our new guys, Jeff, on the team, came up with this one, and I thought he did a fantastic job with it. It's a cool little thing. When I first started, I'm like, okay, that sounds nice. And then when I saw it in the game, I was like, yeah, this is awesome. Why didn't we have this 5 years ago?
Yeah, there's a I can't remember which website it is. And it constantly updates. So if you're wanting to know like where your team fits in or where their draft picks are,
who owns the picks?
Yeah.
That's exactly what this menu does, which is really cool. So if you think you want to tank in a few years and you want to start, not that you can use tank in the NBA, but if you want to get that pick back, you can go find out who has it instead of just going through and like triggering through every team blindly looking for it. So it's pretty cool.
Okay, now the rule changes. You can choose your own rule changes. I know there's a lot of them that you can choose? Some of the ones that were in there already. Did 4-point shots make it in?
4-point shots did not make it in. I'm sorry.
Okay, and I remember I talked to you one year, and you were like, "That's a huge undertaking because
it is, and that's why it's not in." You have to rewrite. Like Mike's team would have to rewrite AI basically. When you're down 6 points with 1:54 left. You probably don't go for a 4-pointer in this case. What if you're down 8 points? Do you go for a 4-pointer? Do you go for a 3-pointer? Do you just go for the easy 2? Like it's a lot of work, and that's just besides the fact that you have to have a 4-point line drawn on all the courts. The players have to have their positioning on the courts, respective of that line and the 3-point line.
Yeah,
it's a ton of work. Yes, we could put it in really cheesy, but I don't think that's even worth anybody's time. If we were going to do it, it's got to be all out. So
yeah,
major undertaking.
I agree. I see, and I totally understand that. What's the wildest new rule change though that's in there? Like the one that's most like, whoa, like it really affects the game.
Well, there's two that I'd call out. The first one is it's totally fantastical. It's not sim. It's just there for fun. You don't have to use it. So all the teams that don't make the playoffs enter into their own little lottery tournament.
Right.
The winner of all of the teams that don't make the playoffs gets the number 1 pick in the draft. So it's one of those things where it's kind of adverse to the NBA where they're just like, well, let me see how bad my team is to give myself a top 3 pick. And the way this system works is that you're not going to win this tournament. You have no chance of getting the number 1 pick if you're just trying to bottom out. So it really discourages that motto of let's see how bad my team can get.
Yeah.
It does encourage that. Well, let's see if I can make my team bad enough to just miss the playoffs and then still be the best team of those.
But who's going to actually try to do that? Because the line is so thin there.
Yeah, it is. But it's a really cool, it's a really fun addition to the game. And if your team doesn't make the playoffs, it kind of gives you your own little playoffs, like something to shoot for in your franchise, and that's kind of fun too.
Hey, I wouldn't be opposed to that in the real NBA. I would not be opposed to it.
So let me go over the other one. The other one's really cool. It's there's been a lot of talk in the NBA. All the talent's moving west. We all know the story, right? The All-Star team and the starters in the East next year is going to be a couple guys. You're like, who dat? Right. No disrespect to those guys. But this year you can actually take, 8 teams from the East, 8 teams from the West, but they're actually seeded 1 through 16, irregardless of conference. Irregardless, not a word. It's really cool because you can have an East-West matchup in the first round, or you can have a West-West matchup in the finals. And I know that the NBA, this is something that would be a big step for them because, they're very conference-based. And I know there's a lot of talk about it, but it's kind of cool. You can kind of use NBA 2K19 as a feeler, as a simulator, to see how that would play out and what it's like. And it's been a lot of fun actually doing that and watching it. So I think that's one that, fans looking for a change are going to have a really good time doing.
Yeah, I like that. Now, so the last thing that I want to ask you about is the player DNA. I think that is a really awesome feature. You'll be able to basically take any singular player that you've made or whatever, and you'll be able to share that player singularly as not as a part of an entire roster, correct?
Correct.
Right. So once, say for instance, I create myself and I put myself out there, will somebody be able to download me and then edit me once they've downloaded me?
Yes, if you choose to upload it, in that case, yes.
Yeah. So they'll be able to, will they be able to do use sliders on my face, the whole 9?
Yes, I believe that's the entire intention of it, is that people can create something, upload it, and then you can kind of import it into your own roster. And for you, it's just another player that you can go in and do what you will with.
Okay. Now, do you know whether or not scanned players, can you use the editor on their faces, or can you change their hairstyles, or is it still just a scanned head?
I mean, the scanned head is the scanned head, but you can obviously do things around it, like the facial hair, the hair, putting the lines into the hair. You can do all of that, but like doing the morphs on the face is it's two different texts that kind of collide at that point.
Right. But you can change hairstyles on scan.
Yeah.
Okay, because that you couldn't do that before.
Yeah, that's one of the missing items that like we're actually working on that last week, so I saw some good progress with it. So
that is awesome.
I'm pretty sure that's going to get there. So let me that's one I can get back to you on, because I know that's in active development even as we speak.
Yeah, I hope that does make it. That one's pretty awesome for sure. So yeah, I mean, man, Eric, I really appreciate your time, man. Really appreciate the work you guys put in, for this. I do notice that you said that this is not the last that we're going to hear from you, and that you have another thing that you want to talk about.
That is so true.
I can't wait to find out what that is. I'm really looking forward to that now.
Awesome.
All right,
awesome.
Eric.
Yeah, before we go, I just want to give a big thanks to the team here that worked on this stuff. Dave Z did a lot of taking over the team this year. Tremendous job. All the engineers, tremendous job. And they did this all for you guys. Like I said, in the blog, they read the forums, they read all the customer service, they read everything. And that's where our feature set comes from, is like feedback from you, our fans. So we're really appreciative of all the support out there, and we're going to keep on doing what we do. So thank you guys.
All right. Appreciate it, Eric. Thank you so much for joining us. And I look forward to talking to you again sometime soon. Hopefully you'll let me know about that feature that you're working on.
Yeah. Oh, very soon. I promise.
All right. Thanks a lot, man. Have a good one.
Thank you, Brian.
Pocket, I'll be weak. I'm rather unique.